What about Joel Selwood? Will this be the last time we see him if the Cats win? Let's hope not. Some ex-teammates have asked their views.
I hope that we give him a chance to be able to go out and ride into the sunset with that trophy.
You think it will be his last game?
Oh, well, I think it'll make it easy if he wins. Yeah, absolutely. I know the bloke that he is. If he loses, he's probably going to come back again and want to go again. But I think if you give him a flag, that's just a perfect way for him to finish at the club.
I think he'll go again.
Yeah.
I think he's comfortable now and coming off the bench. They've found his role in the team. They don't have to play him every game.
It's a fascinating scenario. I mean, this won't be decided until after the year, and I think players get funny and get stressed and often anxious when it gets to the last year and big decision to be made, etc. Matthew, I certainly agree if they don't win, Joel will want to go around again. I don't actually see if they do win why he wouldn't want to anyway, but what I do know is it will leave such a massive hole at that football club. His leadership has been so extraordinary on and off the field. And for Richard Goyder to get up before he presents the Brownlow medal to Patrick Cripps and make a speech about Joel Selwood. I know it was all about the record this weekend and Michael Tuck, etc., but I just thought that was amazing. And I thought maybe, is that the AFL saying goodbye and thank you to Joel Selwood?
It could have been, but here's Joel Selwood post-match on the weekend speaking about the new role and what it's done to the youth of Geelong.
Got a lot of young blokes who are going to probably play their first grand final. You're coming off the bench. How's that for you?
It's fine, mate. I just do what I need to do. Geez, they're playing well, though. I'm so happy for so many of them. Zach Guthrie, Brian. I mean, I just gave Max home as a cuddle, mate, and so sad. I've seen it before happen, but he's been so important for us all year.
To me, he sits really comfortable, and he wouldn't have been the case with where he sits. So you can see their centre bounce, how it's reduced for him. But he has made Tom Atkins, or Atkins has helped the team get better. Duncan going on half-back flank has made Holmes better. Danger going out has helped Mark Blixsebs get better. So, Kano, what do you think with Joel Selwood? I know when Shane Crawford won a premiership, he signed with Hawthorn. But Alistair Clarkson said to him, there's no guarantees I'm going to pick you next year, but it's up to you. We'll wait and see. And Shane said, I'm going to retire based on that. I've got a premiership. Where do you sit with Joel Selwood?
Well, he can do whatever he wants is where I sit with Joel. So that'll be, how would you know? You put himself in those shoes after the game when he's up there on the premiership dice. That may be it, and he may call it soon after that. But I'm torn on it because he's one of the most competitive players I've ever seen. To see what he did to Lachie Neale on the weekend, he brutalised Lachie Neale, who's the best midfielder in the competition, or 1, 2 and 3. So his ability to play any role that's asked of him has me thinking that they would perhaps like him to stick around again. And Caro, to your point, there's probably not an obvious captain either. So that may make the decision for Geelong to try and twist his arm a little bit easier.
There are some fascinating matchups all over the ground.
Who is the next captain, by the way?
Well, I think they've got 6 or 7 to choose from, and I would pick Tom Stewart. This is what they did on the weekend, Lord. They double-teamed Neale. The way they take away weapons to Cats is significant.
What I liked about it, Hutchie, is they could easily have picked Mark O'Connor, but Mark O'Connor hurts them around the stoppage. So they went with Atkins and Selwood, and I want to raise tonight, do they throw those two players to Tommy Papley? So upset the energiser of the Sydney Swans, Tom Papley. He's a burst stoppage player. Get under his skin like he got under Braden Maynard's on the weekend. You'd think to himself, OK, do you go to a Parker or things like that? But I'm thinking, you know what those guys are going to do, yep. Parker, Rowbottom, Mills, but Papley, he can kick you 3 goals. So that's what I'd suggest. Speaking of Mills, does he go to Dangerfield like he did in round 2, or do the Cats try and turn the tables on Mills? Because no one's really disrupted the disruptor yet, have they? Kane, I'll get your view on both of these shortly, but I'm going to throw up again at something different. Is Blixsarves worth upsetting? Dangerfield was best on ground on the weekend, and we know he beat Dangerfield in round 2 earlier in the season, but could you, after the ruck tap-outs, have Mills upset what Blixsarves does for Geelong? What do you think?
Yeah, I like your thinking, Lordo, and something innovative like that. I don't know if it would be a full tag on him, but maybe the way that you exploit him, because Blixsarves like to dictate where he's playing. So if Mills did go to him but then exploit him the other way, that would be more of how I see the matchup, which Mills is incredibly good at it. Even when he plays a shutdown role, he wins a lot of the footy himself. So, yeah, the coaching battle, I heard your comments that it's the 2 best coaches in the game going at it. So picking up those little tactical moves early on is going to be fascinating.
So Chris Scott clearly did a major number on Chris Fagan last week. Craig McRae, who, by the way, is the 2022 Coach of the Year, against John Longmire, who really shut the game down in the last quarter, Matthew. Who wins that coaching battle?
Well, I've heard Geelong players say we just got to win the battles for longer, but I think they're one team that can beat them. Collingwood got close, so the other side who did, but no one else has got near them for 15 weeks. And Chris Fagan, I could see within minutes of that game that there was no answers. By three-quarter time, it was 21 scoring shots to 7, 60 points from turnover to 6. And the players out there had no chance.
But Longmire and Scott, I mean.
Yeah,
are you criticising Chris Fagan's coaching on the weekend? Just days after you criticised his critics.
He was clearly out-coached. I think when you lose a game by that much, we all agree he was out-coached. I'm looking forward, Craig.
That's a fair shift of opinion in 3 days. Sorry,
no, just on Johnny Longmire.
You're following the story, you idiot. I mean, clearly last week he coached well. This week he didn't coach so well.
Yeah.
Go back to John
on your
Longmire.
point on Johnny Longmire, I think he's one coach that won't... Chris Fagan, Kane, the boys just... Brisbane were bombing it in long high. Whereas they won't do that, the Sydney Swans. The way they worked around the Melbourne midfield in the first final was outstanding. Melbourne defence,
that's the point. That's why I love the matchup, because Sydney can challenge Geelong with their leg speed, but also their ball movement. They're an elite kicking team, and they will challenge them. I loved this. We spoke about this on Sunday, but the fact that Geelong went after Brisbane, it reminded me of the Brisbane teams from the early 2000s, and then Sydney did the same to Collingwood. They were really prepared to get under the skin. The McCartan boys there on my check after he pushed him into the post. Papley was in everyone's faces. We know Parker won't back down. We know Heaney's the same, and Franklin was angry as well against Collingwood. So that intimidation of each other, no one's going to take a backward step. I just feel like Geelong have been the toughest team in the competition. You probably haven't been able to say that for Sydney throughout the whole of the season. So often the toughest team wins in finals. That's where I think Geelong have an edge.
And Holmes obviously not training. We're waiting on Holmes at the moment. Sam Reid's so important the other night. They missed him when he left the ground, Matthew. This is a big story going into...
Huge story, Caro. And why I want to highlight this is Heaney in the second half. And some might say, did they get the most of it, Collingwood? But watch as it goes on and you get to the last quarter. So it's in tight, but watch what starts to happen where you can dictate. There's no Sydney player who can think, I'm going to win this ball, because they're not going to win a head out. So as the game wore on, the run and carry of Collingwood, to me, came off the back of Heaney being the ruckman. So my worry for Reid, is that he's got a groin strain. When you have to ruck, you have to jump. That's no good for you. And Max Holmes, he's the hardest runner at Geelong, so not ideal for him.
And McDonald has to step up, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's a precocious talent, but we yet to see it in the postseason.
Kane, I thought he got better when Reid went off the field, but didn't touch it in the first half, McDonald.
No, it was poor the week before as well, and hasn't been great. I mean, it's almost been... He's been getting a game because of structural reasons. Now, if Reid doesn't play... he'll have to play, but he's a massive loss, Reid. He's been in exceptional form and does give them that flexibility and has looked their most dangerous forward at times. So that'll be a huge blow. But to your point, if you can't get through a prelim final that's decided by a point, you're probably not going to get up the week after. So I wouldn't risk injured players. We saw what happened with Taylor Adams earlier on in the final series. We certainly saw Dustin Martin being a liability for Richmond when he played underdone. If there's any doubt, you pick the fresh players.
Kane, you're going to take us into the final spotlight, and it concerns the intrigue around the ruck.
It does, Hutchie. If the Cats have got one weakness, it probably is Reece Stanley. Now, this is why I would never pay massive money for a ruckman, because we've seen so many premiership ruckmen that are basically B-grade players, and a lot of them come from other clubs. This is the case for these two. I give Hickey the slight advantage. Stanley has been so out of form, but he does give him the flexibility to be able to go and play behind the ball, and Blixarve's come into the ruck. So I think Hickey, whilst he's not a noted goal kicker, he's only kicked 3 goals for the year, needs to challenge the Geelong rucks forward, particularly if Reid doesn't play, and provide a target inside 50.
In essence, 2 ex-St Kilda ruck discards who made careers for themselves. Hickey's gone the back road to his success, and Stanley to the Cats. What about the athleticism of Jeremy Cameron, which poses a threat?
He does. I think he's the most important player on the field and the best player on the field in terms of his talent. And the spotlight I'm putting on is Dane Rampy. So we go back to a game against Carlton where Jeremy Cameron Charlie Curnow got a hold of Tom McCartan. So you see here, he just had the athleticism, the power, and it just kept going on. He kicked 6 on the night, Hutchie, and I thought, to me, I don't think he should go to Jeremy Cameron for the athleticism. I don't think the McCartans have the athleticism of Dane Rampy. So I'm setting the task for Rampy to play on Jeremy Cameron. He's the junkyard dog, Dane Rampy, and he's just desperate. He'll go up the field. He can come back with him. So, yeah, I'm going to go the spotlight on him. Can he be the one to stop Jeremy Cameron?
Whatever happens for the Swans on Saturday, it's the official day one of their window, their premiership window, and it will last for years. Their talent is so strong, and that's the 2007 Cats are the ones that they remind me of. Lloyd, who came into that 7, 9, 11 era, lost in 08 when they could have won, but probably weren't at the peak of their powers as players till around 2010. And look at the age profile of the Swans this year, 25.7 be the Cats of that year, and the game's bang on. And you look at that 24-year-old type player they've got, the explosive player.
The team that beat that won the other preliminary final last Friday night was the oldest team to take the field ever.
Yeah.
That Geelong
and you just wonder,
oldest team ever.
You might want to get him now because you might not get him again.
Yeah, he may sell that to the team, particularly if they're with Geelong at 3/4 time. But Sydney didn't finish that strongly themselves in the prelim final.